Good morning. Today's Thursday, October 21st, 2021, and we're here for a work session, and we're going to start with the pledge. And Tim, can you please take the lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. We have two announcements today. First, we encourage all our residents to participate in the Riverhead Comprehensive Plan update process, and you can access a survey online, and it's important. We want to hear your input, and this is your opportunity to tell us how you feel and what's important to the future of Riverhead. The survey is going to remain open until December 17th, 2021. And the second announcement, residents are encouraged to come to downtown Riverhead this Saturday, October 23rd, for the Halloween Fest. There'll be a ton of the coffin races and a ton of different activities, starting from at 3 o'clock until 7 p.m. And again, we encourage you, and we hope to see you there today. Lastly, I'm so pleased to be able to announce that the town of Riverhead has been awarded 2 Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Grants, totaling $93,000. I want to thank the county and, of course, our community development team, headed by Dawn Thomas. They have been at work for the last 18 months, and I think we have somebody here from CDA.
Right on cue.
I do also want to encourage people to come down Saturday. That's such a fun event that the bid does. I think they're on the coffin races too.
They are, I believe they're at 3 o'clock, followed by trick-or-treating on Main Street, I think at 4.
Yes.
And then at 7, the parade, and at 8 o'clock, the awards on the stage,
Yeah, trick-or-treating is 4 to 6.
4 to 6.
Ken, are you participating?
We've been practicing all week at work.
I definitely relate to that.
No, I think you have an unfair advantage with that, Ken.
But we want to see you in one of those coffins.
Hey, that's not nice.
That's not nice.
Good morning.
Morning, Frank.
We would just want
Good
to
morning.
say, we just wanted to thank the board for your continued support for letting us go after the grant applications. We've been awarded many of these over the years, and we're very happy that we have your support. The first one that we were awarded was Round 18. That was during the pandemic. We submitted that in June of 20, and that's the total of $98,000 for that particular grant. We leveraged $30,000 from both CDBG and the BIDMA, and the award was $68,000 for that grant. And that's going to be for Grange Bell Park. We're going to enhance the lighting system, the LED lights, and the electrical system for different events, for reflections, and Riverhead Townscape does concert series in the park.
Yeah.
That was the first grant that we were awarded. The other one was Round 19, which is just this year, and this was to upgrade and enhance the lighting in the alleyway between the Suffolk Theater and the Wilworth Building. And it's going to be an artistic lighting that's going to be on motion sensors. And that was going to be leveraged with BIDMA and CDBG funds, and the award was $25,000. So the total project was $50,000. So.
And I'm really excited about what's going on with Grange Park. I think that our town is rediscovering that, and I do want to give a shout out to Brian DeLuca, and I think Diane Tucci worked with him because they've been doing the reflections, which is really very cool, and I hope, they'll continue that, and people will continue to visit that beautiful park. So it's great that you got the grants to enhance the lighting.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Frank, thank
Great
you.
job, Frank.
Excellent.
And again, to the
CDA,
entire
thank
team.
you.
You guys are moving quickly.
You guys better start buying some lottery tickets, because you've had
Yes.
some good things coming.
We're waiting for that $25 million grant. We're finalists, and hopefully we're going to get it, and that's going to turn Riverhead in a great direction. All right, we're going to move on to our first discussion item. We have Greg Bergman here to discuss matters surrounding project upgrade and application status regarding 205 Osborne Avenue. And Greg, good morning, Greg.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So we do have representatives from the application here. We have Chris Kent and Greg DeRosa and their architect Noel Rogers, if the board has any questions. So this is just an update on the 205 Osborne Avenue mixed-use building site plan application. Since the application had last been reviewed by the board, the applicant has received relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. There were a number of variances that they were seeking. The ZBA granted some of them, denied others, and imposed some conditions. So the relief that was denied was regarding the uplighting component on the side of the buildings, as well as the mounting height of 16 feet above grade, which were both denied by the ZBA. There was a request for relief from parking stall size. Town code requires 10 foot by 20 foot. They were proposing 9 by 20. The ZBA denied that request, but they did allow for a modification to the parking. The ZBA would allow 15 full-size stalls and 20 compact car stalls at a size of 8 foot by 16, with the configuration of such parking to be determined by the town board during the site plan review process. And they also imposed a condition that the applicant will, quote, "step back the 5th story of the building as recommended by the Suffolk County Planning Commission as set forth in its August 6th, 2021 letter to the zoning board to reduce the bulk aspect of the building. The step back on the 5th story should be along Osborne and Court Street facing facades. However, the specifics on the setbacks and the building design are within the purview of the town board and shall be determined by that board in connection with the site plan review." So as I said, they did eliminate the exterior lighting that exceeded 16 feet, as well as the uplighting. The parking stalls have been reconfigured. They do have the 10 full-size stalls, as well as the 15 compact size. They were actually able to make them 8 foot by 18 feet. They kind of distributed them throughout the parking lot and the parking garage on the ground floor. And the step backs have been added to the 5th floor of the building, including a balcony along Court Street with a setback of approximately 5 feet, and then a 2-foot step back along Osborne Avenue. Just one comment on the lighting. Previous versions of the lighting plan that had been submitted with the site plan application included a photometric plan which identified sufficient lighting levels along the pedestrian spaces on Osborne Avenue and Court Street. The newly revised lighting plan shows significantly lower lighting levels in this area, possibly due to the elimination of the building-mounted lighting. The Railroad Avenue Overlay District Code does require pedestrian scale lighting at a height of 12 feet or less, spaced no further apart than 50 feet on center. So as a result of the revisions to the lighting plan, they may need to include some pedestrian street lighting to ensure adequate levels along the Osborne Avenue and Court Street. Regarding the step backs, as I said, the plans do include a 5th floor step back of approximately 5 feet along Court Street. That would include a balcony for residents of the top floor. And the step back along Osborne Avenue, it does continue that 5-foot step back for a little bit along Osborne, and then it comes up to a 2-foot step back. Now, I do note that the building has approximately 66 feet of frontage on Court Street and approximately 134 feet of frontage along Osborne Avenue. Now, the ZBA's determination did leave the step backs and the specifics of that up to the town board during the site plan review. The town board should really consider whether the 2-foot step back along Osborne Avenue is sufficient, as it's the larger of the 2 street-facing facades. I do note that the town code, the Railroad Avenue Overlay District, states that new development should be consistent with the recommendations of the objective design standards for private development within the Downtown Riverhead Pattern Book, with the exception of height. I did include on page 4 of the staff report a depiction from that pattern book, which would guide the design standards. It's basically a 45-degree step back from where the parapet would be, the parapet is, or where it would be if it was included. Now, the language in the code says it should comply, so it does appear to give some discretion to the board. But I would ask the board to consider whether they feel the 2-foot step back is appropriate. I mean, 2 foot is not a signal. This table is probably larger than 2 feet, so the board should really consider whether that step back would be appropriate. I think providing that 5-foot balcony along that top floor would help address some of the bulk and massing along Osborne Avenue, which I said is the predominant facade of the building. And it would also provide some outdoor amenity space for the residents of those apartments on the upper floor. In terms of pedestrian environment, I mean, there's one revision. The Osborne, the Railroad Avenue Overlay District requires a 6-foot wide sidewalk. They're currently proposing 4. I don't think that's a significant issue. I think they can just widen that sidewalk to comply with the Railroad Avenue Overlay Code. So here to get feedback from the board, really specifically for that step back, and then discuss the next steps on the project, which, as the town board has issued a negative declaration on September 21st of this year, and they've received the necessary relief from the zoning board, the next step in the application process would be to schedule a public hearing.
So Greg,
Hold on,
first of
Catherine.
all,
Catherine, can I just run the meeting, please? Thank you. Greg, there were 9 variances applied for at one point?
I believe it was 9, yes.
Okay, how
So-
many were approved?
They denied, there were 2 of those 9 variances were for lighting. They denied those 2 variances, and they denied the variance for parking stall size, but they kind of allowed it with a caveat.
Okay.
So 2 were denied, 1 was approved with a modification, and then they imposed a condition on the 5th floor step back. So really 6 out of the 9 variances were approved.
so Greg, I have some questions that I wanted to address.
Catherine, can you just give
that I
me-
wrote up,
Catherine, can
so-
you just give me a second, please? I
Well,
just want to.
actually,
I'm
I
on a
actually
thought.
was speaking first, but.
Yep, it doesn't matter. Concerning the condition, what condition was that?
The condition, I included in the staff report, I included the zoning board of appeals determination on the last few pages. That condition is on the last page regarding the step back. Is that-
Okay,
Yeah, so specifically the 5th floor, the step back on the 5th floor.
got it.
The
Okay,
zoning board
thank you.
put that, it left it up to the town board as a matter of site plan review, so.
Okay, so now I do want to bring up a couple of things. First of all, thank you for your work, Greg. I think, you brought up a lot of good points in here. I read it over. In regard to the setback, certainly I think that, as we know, the pattern book actually has 4 stories with a setback on the 4th floor. So I would like to see more of a setback on the 5th floor that aligns with the recommendation from the pattern book on the 5th floor. I'm in agreement with you. I think that the building, it would really offset the mass and make for a more attractive building. So I would like to see plans that fully comply with that. It's a 45-foot angle, correct?
45 degrees from the parapet, the top of the parapet wall, or where a parapet would be located.
So I am in agreement on that one. I also wanted to ask a couple of other questions. Where is the building orientation? Where do the tenants enter?
I believe they enter through the parking garage, if I'm not mistaken, So they do enter through the parking garage, and I think on the
Yeah.
west side of the,
Chris,
west
come on.
Answer, yeah. Please.
west
Yes,
side,
Chris, come on up. Absolutely, yes, please.
I think that would be good.
That'd be great. Also, while they come up, I have a question.
Well, I actually have more questions. I'd like to just finish. So, also wanted to ask, like, where passengers are dropped off by taxi or where FedEx comes.
I don't think Greg knows that.
Do we have the site plan?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, how are you?
Watch out, you can't put it on the mic.
Thanks for having us
Want a
today.
huge racket.
So what's the first question, Kathy?
My first question was about the building orientation. Where do the tenants enter? Where would passengers be dropped off from a taxi, FedEx, et cetera, things like that?
FedEx trucks would pull in, and there's a package room right off of the lobby, which is,
So which side of the
Can
building?
we show it on the rendering?
Yeah, I think it would be easier to show it on here.
you can't, it's not, it's the other side of the building.
The lobby is on the side that faces the library.
If you take a look here, Catherine, I can talk you through it. Our main entrance is in off Court Street. So basically, the UPS, everybody would be coming up back into this area. This here is our main residential lobby, entered from under the building. And this is our commercial entrance off this area where most, I presume, a lot of
So
these
people would be
deliveries
pulling up on
be.
Court Street?
They'd be pulling into Court Street, yeah,
No, they'll be pulling into the parking lot.
into the parking lot.
Right. And
From
then
there.
where do the residents go to park? They go in through that?
So they can go in this way or in this way, and then this is all covered parking?
Okay.
This becomes the entrance to the building
For the residents.
where the lobby is? And then there's a package room off of that.
Okay.
For deliveries.
So, my other question, the streets don't have a shoulder area on Court and Osborne, and we have issues sometimes with cars standing on McDermott. So how is that addressed in the site plan?
Well, McDermott is on Main Street.
No, I know, we're talking, I'm just referring to
Oh.
another apartment building
So
where we
the-
have issues.
The vehicles will actually pull into the parking lot off of Court Street. This is a.
If somebody's gonna get dropped off, they would pull into the parking lot. They wouldn't
They
stop on
wouldn't stop
Court or
on-
Osborne.
Okay. Can you explain the rooftop lobby?
Sure. The rooftop lobby serves as access to the rooftop deck, which is an amenity space specifically for the residents that live in the building.
That's what I was looking to
And
find
we
out.
downsized it. It's not really a lobby, it's just a covered roof access point.
Right.
It's not a lobby. It's a rooftop, enclosed rooftop area. There'll be an elevator shaft that comes up. You'll be able to get out of the elevator. You won't be directly outdoors. You'll be in a covered space, enclosed space.
And then you'll proceed to an outdoor roof.
Okay, I think it was something was referred to in the site plan as the rooftop lobby. And has the fire department been contacted to review the plans?
They've been forwarded.
Yes, they have.
We submitted the sufficient
Greg,
number
you
of
wanna-
copies or for referrals to all involved agencies.
I've forwarded it several times. I believe we have it, I mean, absolutely, emphatically, yes, it was referred to the fire department. The fire marshal dropped that off himself. I believe we have a receipt, I want to say on or about September 7th.
Did you forward, they have comments or recommendations?
I've referred this plan to them several times, and I've not gotten comments back from the fire
Okay.
department yet.
So we do actually still need comments from the fire marshal.
We need
Not
comments from
fire
the
marshals, fire
from
department.
the fire marshal. I mean, the fire department is not a involved agency in the permitting process, so I mean, they have comments. Nothing in the code requires comments from the fire department, so the code dictates a plan for the fire marshal to refer the plans to the fire department.
Only if they have concerns.
Right, well, I just know in some of the other.
General site plan process, the fire marshal shall refer a set of plans to the fire department. There's nothing in the code that obviates the fire department to provide comments.
Yeah, not in regard to this building, but I know in some of the other buildings, they had weighed in because they had concerns about vehicles being able to access. So some of the fire commissioners, I think, had weighed in previously. So, I mean, if you do, so I would like to see that feedback when you get that.
If I get it, I'll
And,
provide it.
you know, you did refer to the 4-foot versus 6-foot sidewalk. Will there be an area for trees and green space in the walkway?
The site plan does show trees planted along Street and Osborne. So yes, there will be trees planted, there will be landscaping around the base of the building on all frontages.
Greg, just at one point though, if there are underground utilities, it does create a problem. We had that problem with David Gallo, which required that the developer underground all the utilities. That prevented
You gotta
the street.
speak up louder, please.
That will-
Jeff, you should probably
Jeff,
come
can
to the
you
mic,
come up to the mic?
or come up here with, or come with us.
I'll sit next to Catherine.
You can be Catherine, Ken.
With the David Gallo building requires
Good
street
morning.
trees, unfortunately, good morning, everybody. We require street trees. Unfortunately, we require the developer to underground all the utilities, as we will with this application. You can't plant trees over electrical utility lines, or any other utility lines. So in that case, we require planters. In this case, I'm not sure where the underground utilities are gonna be. That would preclude planting of, trees into the sidewalk. So in lieu of that, they could provide planters instead.
Do you know where the underground utilities are going to be?
Not at this point.
Okay.
We're working through.
So I just don't want anybody to think that, I don't mislead anybody saying that they're gonna plant trees, but then it becomes problematic down the road. I think the underground utilities is way more important, and then they can provide planters instead.
I think it's a good point. I don't see that being an issue here. and if it is, we'll address it with the planners.
Yeah.
I just
Intent
think-
is to have a really nice building, I mean, consistent with everything.
Right, and that's why I'm asking that. I
Yeah.
think,
Yep.
I just think trees, it
Just a
wouldn't
f-
look nice along there.
A follow-through thought in that we do have an area here away from the trees that we could consider, getting our drops and getting them out of from the tree roots.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I think we have the room and the
Yeah.
space to coordinate
be-
utilities.
Right, and certainly I would prefer to have trees planted as
Yeah,
As
we are,
opposed to
as you see our site plan,
planters.
these are our proposed locations for them.
Yeah,
So-
there's
so-
quite a few trees that are, these circles are all trees, I think. are-
2, 3, 4, 5, 7 along.
Sometimes you have two conflicting good intentions, and you just want to make sure we address them ahead of time, that's all.
Well, and we can go back to many years ago when they cut down all the trees on Main Street. Took
Oh.
us years to recover, those of you who've been around for a while know that. Took us years to recover from that, so trees definitely make a difference in the look of things.
But we will certainly coordinate that comment when we get to that stage.
Okay. Greg, I know you looked at everything in reference to the pattern book. Were there other things that were not in compliance with the pattern book?
I mean, the biggest thing was that step back. I mean, they do have some articulation in the building facades. They are using quality materials on the facades. So it's really that step back is the most significant issue.
I think one of the things that is unique about this building is that it has two frontages. It's Osborne and Court Street, right? The situation that we didn't have at 331 East Main Street, so we comply with the setback along Court Street, but made an effort and an attempt to do so on Osborne as well, by setting the building back 2 feet. And as you go further and further back, you make it really, really hard to deliver any efficient residential units on that, which is arguably the best floor in the building. So I think we want to be mindful about how much we tweak that and push that back, being empathetic to what the concern is, trying to address that, but also understanding that by doing that, there's going to be a reaction that's going to make those units on that floor inefficient and really hard to build. And I think you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, just following up on what Greg says, we felt the 2 feet, it took a lot out of the apartments. We did understand the need for it, and we think it helps the elevation and helps your concern. We're at a situation now where we obviously need the bedroom and an exterior wall for code reasons, for light and ventilation. We're teetering now in the area where we're at our minimum habitable space dimensions, so, we're struggling with that quite a bit. For us to move it further back in, we really couldn't get 1 or 2 bedroom apartments here. We would need to consider possibly studios, which,
Or turning them sideways.
yeah.
Or what if you did, so you might not be able to have as much living space up there, you're saying, or maybe one less
Living.
apartment, but couldn't you, because those would be, if you put more of a setback, that would make the apartment, enhance the apartments actually, and couldn't you charge more for those than
Right,
instead?
so I hear where you're going. If it was a matter of that, then I would say, yeah, great idea, because that's what we did on the front, right? So we moved the front back 5 feet, and we've already gone down from 40 to now 38, right? The issue is if you carry that line across this whole Osborne side to that line, which is 5 feet, right? Now, these units that are left here, they have to be flipped horizontal, right? They can't stand vertical. So it's not a question of losing one unit. You might lose, 1, 2, 3, 4, you might lose 2 of the 4.
2 units,
on-
yeah.
Yeah, and we've already gone from 40 to 38, and I think that would be it would be pretty painful to the overall cost of the project.
Well, I think you can understand, though, that the town worked really hard to get the pattern book in place, and, that was a lot of weighing in from the community with their concerns about the mass and the density. And I do think that the setback, the pattern book obviously recommends 4 stories with a setback on the 4th floor. So you're doing 5 stories. So for me, I would want to see the setback, I would like to see the plans with the setback, more of a setback on the 5th floor.
Well, the original intent of this zoning, I believe, the very beginning of why this was considered and adopted, was to move some of the height away from Main Street and bring it over to the Railroad
Yeah, why
Avenue
don't-
corridor.
But
And
I'm
I
gonna-
think that was
yeah.
the original intent in the plan and in the study.
Can I?
But
can
I'm
I
going to
just
go back
interfere
to,
here?
if I could just finish.
Dawn?
But I'm going to go back to that, you know, obviously this is the location of this. It's between our Suffolk Historical Society, which is one of our most beautiful buildings, and our library. And, you know, certainly we're not talking about changing the height, talking about just setting back the 5th floor so that it offsets the mass and the density, which is something that the community has been concerned about, not just me.
I doubt that you'd be talking about it if the community.
Thank you, Greg.
Go ahead.
Can I just
Yeah.
have Dawn come up, because this is coming, there's a difference between the overlay district that was presented recently, signed, accepted by this board, and the pattern book for DC1. So Dawn, can you just explain the differences to the
Sure.
public, so everyone's on board?
So, one of the reasons that I think the DTR committee recommended that we kind of shift that density to the railroad area is because they didn't want it on Main Street, and also because it was more amenable to it, and it was the most blighted area. So we really wanted to draw investment. And so the density is what is drawing this investment, and that's why these gentlemen are here, I think. So, you know, mission accomplished in that regard. But when understanding that the pattern book was really critical on historic Main Street, and we do have historic resources in this area, there's no question, but the Main Street historic resources is what was the impetus for the pattern book, and the pattern book is being codified regarding Main Street. But in this area, we were thoughtful about decreasing density because we wanted to bring the investment. So we just put it in as a recommendation rather than a mandate. And so it gives the board that flexibility to make a decision that might not be completely, you know, compliant with the pattern book, but yet it embraces the spirit of it. And so we get really good design here versus, you know, strict historical necessary compliance. So I think it really does strike that balance. You know, and you can see this is always the struggle between a viable project from an economic point of view for the developer and something that we want them to invest more money in so it looks better and that it's maintained well and all of those things. And so versus, you know, the visual impact that we want to have. So I think, you know, this really does strike a balance in that way, and, you know, up to you how you want to handle it, and the zoning board was mindful of your role as the site plan approvers here and gave you that latitude, so I hope.
Well,
that-
certainly,
If I could follow
I-
up on Dawn, just one thing,
Sure.
in response to that question. I really view Court Street more as the historic street, and the fact that we are stepping it back along Court Street, which is where it does front on the Historic Society and the library, is the Court Street corridor. Osborne is less of a historic street. You're looking at basically the rail yard from Osborne Avenue. You're looking at you know, what will be across the street, which you're proposing, I think, a 5-story building right across the street under your RFP or RFQ. and,
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't believe Osborne is historic in this area. Court Street, which faces the Historic Society and has the library behind it, behind the building, I think that's more of the historic corridor that you're looking to step back from.
Yeah, I think- and
That's the gateway, really,
Yeah.
that we've been
But
talking
I
about.
beg to differ on that, because on Osborne, we have the Perkins Hotel, which is one of our most historic buildings in Riverhead. We also have the Suffolk Historical Society, so I'm going to disagree on that point.
Okay, so at Osborne, if you want to go to the Perkins Hotel, which is a building taller than this building,
Right.
much greater mass than the building we're proposing, the Perkins Hotel is a much greater mass than this building.
Well, what I'm looking for are what the pattern book did, and certainly I don't want the pattern book to end up being something that's stuck on a shelf and not utilized. A lot of time, work, money, and we got a lot of input from the community. So I am not asking for any, I understand that developers want to get a return on their investment, that's fully understandable. I am asking for certain architectural elements that, you know, offset the mass and the massive look of these buildings and make them more attractive building. And And I think you can agree with me that if we were able to do a setback on the 5th floor, it would be more attractive. And certainly I would be looking for any other elements that are pattern book guidelines to be incorporated into the building.
It would, so what we do is we build quality units for people that value that and want to live there and call it a home. In order to accomplish that objective, you would take away the quality from the actual living space that we're providing, right? So, going back another 2-3 feet would have a pretty material impact on the existing floor plan and the layout, and you'd be left with dens and living spaces that were unusable. And that, I don't think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that's the intent of what is being tried to accomplish here, in the sense that we're trying, or the overlay and the general consensus has been to try to deliver market rate luxury apartments in an area that frankly needs them, right? So I hear what you're saying and I understand it, but it comes at a cost, right? And by doing that, you could be jeopardizing the very intent of what you're trying to accomplish by having a company like us coming in and invest $17, $18 million in this site, right? It's not a little bit of money, right? It's a lot of money, and in order to do that, what's really important is that we look at it as, if you or anybody else here was living in these units, what's your experience going to be like? Do you want to stay here? Do you want to live in this unit? Does it fit your need? Right? That's really important to us, right? So I would ask that you would look at that, because there's an unintended consequence in doing what you're suggesting, but maybe that's something that you're firm on and want to stick to. I just want to point it out
Yeah,
and make
we have an
everybody.
entire board that will be
Right.
deciding on this, and
Okay,
I know
just
that
wanted to
they're.
make everybody aware of where our thought process was and why we were doing some
Sure.
of the things that we're doing, right? And, yeah, it doesn't make me right. I'm just communicating to you our perspective.
As I am-
and- yeah.
As
And
I
that-
am openly communicating with
Yeah.
you, and I know
And-
you appreciate that, and I do know that you build quality buildings, and I'm appreciative of that as well. And certainly, as a board member, I am able to speak up as an individual.
Absolutely. but
So
we-
just,
Can we just follow up on Greg's
Yeah.
point?
So you think that's valid, Mo?
Yeah. If we
It
move
is.
this
I
wall
would
back
like to
3
say
feet,
something
if we
also.
move this back 3 feet, what is the depth of these units?
These, following up on what Greg said, if we were to move that back another 3 feet, these really become uninhabitable to a certain degree. And so you've probably the best units in the building, where people are going to come and it's really going to be the magnet for this building. The higher up you are, you probably see the Bacana, you see lovely views. So now you're going to be in a situation where you have really, really tiny units that are really non-compliant to a large degree, with no real space up there. And these units tend to be the better units in the whole building.
no, I know that, I did
So
think
now
of that,
we're
yes.
penalizing the developer and penalizing a lot of the
You're taking
integrity
away,
and value of the
you're
building.
taking away market rate units that people could live in and enjoy, but in order for them to do that, the units have to be functional, right? It has
Right.
to be decent closet space, there has to be a living area where they can actually sit down and relax. So things that people need to check the boxes of whether or not, regardless of how much money we spend on the finishes, right? So I think it's an important thing to consider as we continue to evaluate this project.
Greg, did you have
Right,
any
yes.
thoughts or ideas on this?
I mean, I'm not an architect, could there be some reconfiguration? I mean, it looks like you've got, two one-bedroom units and a studio as you head north of that elevator, Could there be a reconfiguration that would maybe work for the applicant, maybe work for the town board and accomplish the goals? I'm not the design professional, I'm not gonna
And that's
represent
always.
myself as
and-
such, but, could there be some could there be some middle ground? Perhaps, but
Greg,
I'm,
just to speak to that from an architectural viewpoint, we're pretty much set in the building where our main elements are, with the stair, the elevator,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
core. It's not that we could just take this and move it another 5 feet or split the difference on the upper floor. You know, structurally, it doesn't work that way. And, you know, that would be our only real hope of doing that. By us moving it back in, again, not to reiterate, but sort of like revisit, we're getting at units that are really non-code compliant. You know, we're, at the end of the day, you're looking, by the time we put a handicap bathroom in there and put a kitchen that complies with handicap issues, you really have nothing left.
You would have maybe one unit in a small studio. And
Yeah.
that would, in order to accomplish that, you'd have to rotate it sideways.
We'd probably have to take all this and maybe make one railroad type
Yeah.
unit.
I mean, that's the question that, you know, I don't know. Rather than 2 one-bedrooms and a studio, could it be the penthouse 2-bedroom suite, you know, where someone's gonna have
Well, we already
50-foot.
did that.
That's what we
already
did over
that
here
on the
to
front.
accommodate this here, which we lost 2 apartments, you know, by.
That side won't have the view. And also, I think we have to remember that on the opposite side of the street, we're gonna have another similarly sized building, most likely. And
Great
so when
point.
you're coming down Court Street, you're not gonna really see that, probably. And the Court Street's definitely the more important side, because that's the side that faces the Historical Society. It's most likely to be seen from the Perkins or Main Street, and it has the views of the river. And so when you're coming across the Court Street Bridge, that's the side you're gonna see.
And it does wrap around Osborne. The
Yeah.
5-foot setback does.
Yeah, it does wrap
go-
around the corner up until that
It's just
second.
as you move further down Court Street.
So it's
Osborne.
follow
I just don't wanna
How-
throw
how
the
much of
baby
that
out the
step- how much
bathwater
of
here,
that
you
step
know?
No, I'm not
back
looking
Yeah.
to do
No,
that.
no, I
and
didn't say that, I'm
certainly-
just thinking,
No, I know
you
you're
know,
not.
we gotta be
How much?
careful here.
Certainly, you know, I understand your,
20, 30
you know,
feet,
I'm
something like
understanding
that.
your point of view, and, you know, I think it's about bringing everyone to the table and figuring things out and working things out, and, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I feel strongly that it's, you know, it's my job to, you know, push for the best-looking buildings that we can get in Riverhead. And so I am a little concerned too, if we aren't gonna use the pattern book guidelines, you know, moving forward, I would like the pattern book used, you know, as much as possible in that area.
Without a doubt, and I think you're seeing a lot of pattern book elements here in this design. It's just that we were, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we were really looking for balance there, and it's not as critical in this area, and we're trying to draw investment into a very risky area for investment. You know, it's like, you don't even want to walk around there, really, honestly. And so when we were saying we're going to put a, you know, a very high-end building in that area, you know, that was the balance we were trying to strike. So we're saying, you know, we want good design, but we're not going to maybe insist strictly on the pattern, because the pattern book was designed for Main Street, not for DC3. It doesn't apply to DC3.
Exactly.
This is DC3, it's an urban renewal area, it's an opportunity, it's all those things.
There's an overlay.
Well, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna keep going on about it. I obviously have expressed that I would like to see the top floor setback more.
Okay,
So
great.
thank you.
And
Thank you for
sorry,
answering my
just
questions.
one follow-through, like, we do agree that the 2 feet does help this issue. It's a step in that direction. And we do think it meets the intent of what Dawn's saying, this type of area. You know, there's credence for it to be stepped back. If you look at the elevation, if you're walking down there, the top floor is pretty much going to go away, you know, when you're a pedestrian in that area, you know, so it's a good move. So we do think we have made a big step in that direction, you know, to try and meet the intent of the design guidelines.
Okay.
Is that usable space where the railing is up there? Are they gonna be able to come out of their apartment?
Around the front on Court Street, yes.
Not on the
Not
Osborne
on
side?
Osborne.
Correct.
See, I also would prefer to see that go down the length of Osborne. I think it makes the building look less boxy-like. We've got boxy on Main Street already. We kind of don't want that. I understand the 2 different districts, and I'm very appreciative that you're interested in doing this project and getting rid of the blight that we have there. But for me, the look with the setback, with the 5-foot setback, all the way down on the Osborne side, would really do it for me. It would really make me like this building a lot more.
Okay.
I understand, you know, I've heard both sides of it, I understand the pros and cons, I understand it from the developer's side, but a lot of people in this town are very upset about some of the changes that are going on. They're gonna have to realize these changes are needed for this town to succeed. And as I've said many times before, this is one piece in the puzzle of the big picture. But also, it doesn't mean I want to accept every and anything that comes in without having to say to make it look as good as it possibly could. And I do think going down the Osborne side with the railing would really make it more attractive.
The railing or the setback?
The setback with the railing.
Okay.
And actually, and thank you for that, Tim, actually, I think more people will see the building from Osborne. I think that's an area that.
I think as you're coming west on Court Street, you're going to see the building big time. Now, until something's done in the parking lot there, and we don't know quite yet how that's going to be set up, you're going to see this as first and foremost. I mean, you're going to see this, the biggest part of this building, you're going to see coming westbound on Court Street, east of Osborne. So for me, it would really, I wish you could try to show me a reconfiguration that doesn't cost you your business model, and I understand you have to make a profit in what you're doing, but I just wish there could be some way to compromise with this. I know you compromised already with the front of it and coming around the side, but I wish we could just look a little bit harder at trying to do something here on that Osborne side all the way.
So the balance in that is people living in the building, supporting the community. Because in order to accomplish what you're suggesting, and what you're suggesting, which I understand, there's going to have to be a further reduction in density. Is that worth it?
Greg did tell him you got to speak louder.
Okay.
It's not coming.
Is that,
He's soft
is
spoken.
that,
No, he's got the microphone.
I'll go there.
is the reduction in
That's better.
density worth the architectural and aesthetic benefit of what you're trying to accomplish? And
That
that's only
becomes an ultimate question for you as your business model, as are
Right.
you going to make enough on this to make it work for you or not? See, if they have access to I'm going to call it a balcony on Court Street with the railing, I would like to see the same thing, that they would have access to it. If I were on the 5th floor, I would want that. I wouldn't want to just be able to look and say, I got a great view. I would much prefer to have 5 foot of space to go out and set a chair or a little table and enjoy it out there.
I
I would
understand.
give that space up for a smaller den. Personally, that's me.
Okay.
Because it opens your world up.
It does, it absolutely does, to be able to go out. It's one thing to look at and enjoy the view, but if you can go out and sit and really enjoy it on a nice day, you want to get some air, that, to me, it's not only aesthetic, it's part of what I paid for, you know?
Well, just to touch on a little bit of the broad picture of change in Riverhead, I know times people are upset and they don't want to see any change, but we do have to have change. You know, this past week, we demolished buildings on Main Street, and that needed to be done. Those buildings needed to go, and we're moving forward. But also, as a board, we need to look at, you know, you have to understand, we're looking at what's the best for Riverhead long-term. And we want to have good-looking, you know, attractive buildings in our downtown. And, you know, there have been a lot of concerns about previous buildings that went up.
Everybody still has PTSD over that.
Okay, so.
I get that. That's certainly not what we want. The last thing we want is for us to put a building up and everybody to point at it and say, you know, who approved that? Why is that there? Okay, so.
We have that already with one building
Oh,
downtown.
no, I get it.
That's why
I get it.
I'm really trying to look to avoid
And
that
I
at
am
all costs.
empathetic to that perspective.
In a sense, it wasn't bad because it really woke everyone up to what was necessary and what you could ask for as, you know, in terms of design as a board.
Excellent point.
Well, not that you're
Excellent point.
making, and not that you're repeating that building, you're not.
No.
But certainly, we didn't want a repeat of that.
Yeah, no, I'm not taking it that way. I guess really is, as proposed is the way it's designed currently, is that something that everybody likes, or are we being asked to?
I like what I see. I really do. I like your work. I've told you that.
Yeah.
The stuff you've done in Huntington, I really appreciate and I like a lot. But this is just one thing that sticks out to me that I would like to see if there's any way to reconfigure
Okay.
and do that. I would really appreciate that.
Okay.
Well, nobody's asked me for my opinion, but I'm going to give it to you. I love the building as it stands right now, and it's not a deal breaker for me if that balcony or railing is extend it. It's not a deal breaker for me. I think it's a beautiful building. I think it's going to attract exactly what we're looking for in the railroad area. Two bedrooms, single bedrooms and studio apartments that are close to the railroad and close to the downtown. I think it's exactly what the overlay district is looking for, and that's my opinion.
Thanks.
And I'd like to add, if it's possible, especially with the railing, can you see if there could be some type of modification?
Absolutely.
And get back to us? That would be great. The building is beautiful. I know you guys do great work across, across Suffolk County, and thank you for having interest in us. I believe if this building wasn't located next to the Historical Society building, I don't think that this would have been an issue, but we're addressing all the issues, and I think that we should move in this direction, maybe the aesthetics, try to address some of the one concern that Councilman Hubbard has, and yes,
I mean,
it's a great project.
yeah, so any insight early in the process is critical. And when we went through the process on 331, there were a couple suggestions that were made by the Architectural Review Board that I think had a dramatic positive impact on the development, right? So I'm happy to sit with Noel and take a look at this and see if it's doable, and then communicate that back to you guys, and at least tell you that we tried to take a look at it. And
Even-
hopefully we can figure it out.
Even with the 2-foot setback, could you show me a version of it with railing going down the side of the building?
Of course.
Because that might might make the setback look larger than it actually is, just with the railing down.
I
That's a
absolutely can,
thought
I
too. I
absolutely,
mean, I
I
prefer
absolutely
the
can do
5 foot
that.
all the way around.
Yeah, I
But maybe
absolutely
just
can
to
do
look
that.
with the railing might
Yeah.
show the
I think
setback.
it's a good point, and I can do it, but I actually am curious out of my own curiosity, I want to go back and see if this could be tweaked, and if it's better, and it provides a better product, then I will communicate that and tell you guys that, and say, okay, this is what we were able to do. If it's not, you'll hear that also.
Okay.
I think
So-
even I'd be
And,
Appreciate
I'm gonna-
applicable to,
Sorry, Ken.
the 2-foot is obviously a useless walk space, with having the railing down, the railing then would just become aesthetics, but, I mean, even if it's not the matching the 5-foot setback, if you can go with 4 or something, then it's a utilizable space,
Right.
3 feet's a hallway, so even 3 feet, so if we pushed it back, I'm medical, just find somewhere in the middle, like even with 3 feet, you've got a utilizable walk space, at least you can go out, at least you can have a sliding glass door and go out and enjoy that, and to see that. I'm actually-
My sense of it is it's probably going to be, and I think you were probably going here, it's either going to be 2 feet with a railing or 5 feet and being able to provide outdoor living space to those units.
See, I think that adds value to your
Let us kick that around, and if it's workable, I'd be
Not
happy
only
to
do I have the great view on the 5th floor, but I've got a little place I can go outside to
Right.
also. To me,
And-
that's,
Yeah.
I guess it was the variance said that, I actually liked the lighting design that was originally on the outside. I thought that really kind of enhanced the aesthetics of the building, so under the parapets, I mean, could they have any downlighting, or is that what the zoning board did not like? Or they were
Zoning board
specifically about
denied
the uplighting?
any exterior lighting above 16 feet on the facade. I mean, if,
even
I don't
if
think,
it's
if
not-
there- if
minimum
there's any
lighting,
lighting on the, like, the plans show, like, little accent lighting on the balcony,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily
Yeah, like
think,
a
I don't, like a wall
sconce
sconce, just
on the
something so
outside.
The sconces-
so that you're not sitting outside in the
shooting
dark.
up as
I
you
don't
go.
think that's an issue, I think,
I thought it added a great appearance to the actual project going by, and it just.
God,
No, I
thanks
agree
for
with that.
saying
I
that.
mean, the lighting
You know,
was,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. We did also. The dark sky ordinance is what triggered that as a variance.
even sconces that just shine down or something from like higher up, but I understand if that's their view at the 16 point, but maybe those can exist on the 5th floor, like you say, at
Well,
6
the
foot levels.
design of the lighting, even the uplighting, was to have it, to strike the facade, not to go into the sky.
Correct.
So we
And I
didn't
think
really
even if they
feel.
were shining up, the parapet wall, the design would have blocked anything
It
from
would. It would
continuing
only reach the
on.
roof line. It
Yeah,
wouldn't go
exactly.
beyond the roof line because it's focused on the building facade, not putting light into the sky. So, and the whole downlighting is also facade oriented, but it would provide lighting, public safety lighting along the sidewalk. So by removing those, now we have the second, I noticed in the staff report, removing the facade lighting is causing us to have to put in light posts for public safety purposes, so.
And just to follow through on that, that up and down lighting is a trademark of Greg's developments. It makes them look beautiful at night, it makes
I
them
think so.
stand out. We do that in other jurisdictions who also have the dark sky requirements, and they basically don't treat that as part of, you know, freestanding light that's lighting.
No, because it's not shooting
Well,
off
it's
into
just-
the
it was
sky.
just
Fades away.
Just
and whatnot,
illuminating
so
the building.
It really hasn't been an issue for us in other municipalities that because of the benefit of the accent lighting, you know, we've been complimented, Greg's been complimented many times by, in
Actually,
different
yeah,
municipalities.
I'd like to see one of your other buildings that has it.
Anytime.
Where,
I think
what's
I
a,
provided a rendering to everybody.
I know, but I'd like to actually
Oh, go
see
there
it.
and see
At
it.
night.
Yes.
I-
Maybe you
I
can shoot me
just
the
go-
I
address.
thought that was a good,
There's 4 or
like
5
the accent
buildings
lighting,
in
I'm
downtown
sorry I
Huntington.
lost it.
Yeah, I know, maybe we can
Okay.
re-entertain it.
And,
You would know our buildings when you drove past them.
and just to finish up, I mean, I also think in terms of what I would want, you know, I'm getting to the time of life where I may think about downsizing at some point. And I think as, you know, to Tim's point also, it'd be nice to have outdoor space, and I liked what Greg mentioned about perhaps fewer units, but more luxury units. So I appreciate you taking another look at that.
Okay.
And Can I just ask, as a goodwill gesture, I think, Christie already reached out to the library board and tried to communicate with them. I know that they had stated that they had very concerns about the method of construction, and I don't know if you've had a chance to clarify with them about you're not pile driving anything into.
No, there's no pile driving.
So have you had a chance to talk to the library board? and
No,
so
but we
forth?
will, if you.
I would encourage you to just have a goodwill gesture communication
Be
with
happy-
them. They
be
have
happy,
concerns
yeah.
about like vibrations and what may happen to their structure, and maybe that will alleviate some of their concerns. So I would like you to see you reach out to the Historical Society as well as the library board, just to kind of
Yeah, I
let them
think-
know the process and what you intend and what effects it may have on the surrounding.
And certainly with a museum, I think you can understand their concerns.
It's all old
Vibrations.
stuff anyway, though, right?
All right,
Kidding, I'm kidding.
thank you, thank you. Thank
Watch
you,
it, now you
Greg.
get used to,
Sarcasm
better get out
is
while the
a
getting's
noble
good.
thing. Sarcasm.
All right, so, I mean,
You got
just.
a little bit of work to do.
In terms of
Not
next
a lot.
steps, I think, just so we're on the same page, give direction, if the board, I think, would like to see if you can work out that fifth floor.
Prior to scheduling a public hearing? Is it- we re-
So, I mean, that's the
I
tricky
think,
part. 'cause
I
one-
think you guys realize that our intent here is to help and to be a part of the solution. I'd really love to have something scheduled so that we can continue to advance the project.
How long would it take you to get back some looks for us or figure something out?
Yeah.
At the end of the
we-
week.
Okay.
Good, because I think the
Hold
public
on,
would want to
Catherine.
comment on
Catherine?
What is?
final, right.
Yeah, and that would be
That
my
makes
only
sense.
concern, scheduling a public hearing on a plan, I believe, and I think I would ask Bob. Once you schedule a public hearing, you kind of establish timelines for approval. So, I
Exactly.
mean, if you're gonna have a public hearing on an application, it really should be on a plan that the board
Agreed.
intends to carry
Agreed,
forward through.
agreed.
So,
Right,
like,
that's my
We're
point.
not
Yeah,
having a hearing on one plan and then
From
we'll
what I'm-
change it, so.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing is that you can have something back to us within a week. So if you can have that within
By
a
the end of
week,
this week, we will
and
get back to
you
you
could
one
just
way or
send it to us, right? Email it to us. We can
That's
have a
fine.
discussion with you.
And we won't delay.
And
That'd be
then
great.
We
at
just
that
set something
point, we
up.
can set the, as
That's
long as
great.
we have 3 members who agree, we'll set the schedule meeting.
next Thursday.
Yeah, you could have a resolution in the packet next week, once we
Okay,
decide
yes,
on what the
yeah.
plan will look like.
Well,
That's
I
great,
mean,
that's the only thing that I ask for some help in advancing this along.
If you get it to us within a week, we're gonna give you an answer within a week, how's
Great,
that?
that's perfect.
Well, couldn't we, you know, if you're going to get it by the end of the week, I would think we could discuss it at the next work session so that the public can hear and the public is aware of what's happening. Thank you, guys.
Okay, we'll decide, thank you.
How is the other project going?
Exceptionally well.
Good.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Good.
we're slated to be completed by the end of March. Building facade is being installed now. It's been a challenge with the supply chain, as you can imagine, and costs have only gone up. So, but I'm really excited about it. And some of the units, a lot of those units in that building have water views, where you can at least see the water from, you know, a window in the apartment. And I think it's going to be really, really cool building. I'm really excited about it. We're looking at some different options on the first floor for like a cafe or an ice cream shop or something like that. There's about like 900 feet of retail commercial space there. That was one of the questions that was asked to me a couple weeks ago. I think it's going to be a great project, and I think once the facade comes on, I think everybody's going to see that it's going to be a cool building.
And I always wanted the retail on the first floor because our whole idea of our downtown area is to create a walkable downtown, and I think that just increases that.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll find the right tenant that adds value to the community, but also offers an amenity to the people that are living within the building.
And families,
Yeah, families, yeah.
not just necessarily for a certain age group.
Yeah.
Get them to walk from east to west, that's what we're looking for.
We are.
Keep
We're on our
going.
way.
they can walk right on down to the town square,
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an exciting development.
right?
It really is.
Yeah.
Really is.
It was nice to see it the other night.
Yeah.
Yes, you know what, this was about 18 months in the making, when we sat down under COVID, we closed down, no contact with the public, and trying to keep the town.
25 years, really.
It was, the concept was,
Take it from an old
Probably
council
longer
member.
than that,
Opening
Chris.
up to
Yes.
the river,
Yes.
for sure.
I mean, it's going to be, it's
It
going
was
to be,
25
years.
it'll become the heart
Ran
of
out in 95.
Right.
of everything.
that's the purpose of it, and we had the support of the entire town board, which was great, and then we were able to move very quickly on that.
Yeah.
And as Tim has said before, progress in government is very slow, but in 18 months,
Not in this
we
case.
put the shovel into the buildings, you know, which is great.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
in
Thank
today.
you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our last discussion item relates to matters surrounding storage of vehicles at EPCAL. To remind the public, this town board voted unanimously in favor of storing storm-damaged cars at EPCAL. Councilwoman Kent, you voted in favor of storing the cars at EPCAL. Thereafter, a car broke out in fire, and unfortunately, through the good work of our fire departments, the damage was minimal. And Catherine, you requested this item to be put on for discussion. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Perfect. So, yes, I did request to have this on the agenda. I'm going to ask Mr. Kovacevic and our fire marshal to come up. And yes, we did vote on that because the town had a contract in place. The town had already collected $200,000. But since then, new issues have come up. Certainly having a fire out there made a big difference. And as I have stated before, having electric cars now makes the entire thing very different. And I think that we need to look at that as far as, concerns with fire. We recently had a fire out there where they used fire foam. So I did request to put this on. The community has concerns. I think it's something that we need to look at it again. And Bob, can you come
Okay.
to the table?
Yes.
I'll move down.
No, you can
And
stand
I'm
up
gonna
there.
ask.
I mean, I'm more comfortable standing, just as a former ADA, I just like that
I
better,
know.
so if I can
Well, I'm gonna
stand.
ask Craig. Craig, can you come to the table? There's a mic here. Then you can join in. Thank you.
Catherine, if the town attorney feels comfortable speaking from the mic, could we, let me work with this meeting, Catherine, I really appreciate it.
You know what? I'm
Cass,
allowed,
would you
I'm
please continue?
speaking up, and I'm not
Sure.
asking Bob
Okay.
to move.
No, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so just as a backdrop, in preparation for today's meeting, I quickly assembled a timeline, not knowing exactly where we were gonna go, just to kind of give a backdrop of where we've been within IAA. The course was set when Superstorm Sandy landed in October 29th of 2012, and I set forth a number of what I thought high points of things that happened thereafter. I will note that with regard to the items that address the cars being removed from 1432, which is the 10,000-foot runway, and then off of both runways, some of that is anecdotal. In fact, one of the things that I relied upon was a March 9th, 2013 article from Tim Gannon in the News Review, which had photos from Barbara Ellen Cox showing that the cars on the eastern runway had been removed. In
Thank
that
you,
article,
Tim.
in that article, there was also what I thought sort of important, and I understand there's some change in circumstances here, the following quote or following words. The State Department of Environmental Conservation has issued violations to Copart and Mr. Berman for storing the cars on the grass, period. The DEC has said it had no objections to cars being stored on the runways or taxiways, which are paved, comma, although Richard Amper of the Long Island Pine Barrens Society has called for the town to act and the practice as well, comma. And I thought that was important because I think it's significant that all throughout this process, we've been in contact with DEC. We've had numerous conversations or communications with Robert Marsh. Mr. Marsh, when I asked him initially, what his concerns were with respect to this particular situation that arose as a result of Ida, indicated that provided we did what we did back in 2012, 2013, DEC would not have objections to the cars being stored. And we've been trying to adhere to that as much as possible. I've been on the phone with the IAA representatives on a fairly constant basis. And in fact, subsequent to this last town board meeting, I've reached out to them and in order to see if we can get the EV cars removed. I think we can do that. So I don't want to make an
Excellent.
affirmative representation, but I believe that they are prepared and willing to do that as a
And-
sign of good faith and a goodwill for the town of Riverhead.
And
Thank you,
Bob,
Bob.
I think that there aren't a lot of cars, correct?
The number of EVs have been somewhere between 20 and 30.
Okay, so.
30 there as of this morning.
Right. And initially, they were stored 10 feet apart as a result of this unfortunate occurrence. The fire marshal asked that they be further spread apart, so they're now 20 feet apart from one another.
correct.
Yes.
And they've done that. In addition, we saw some staining or some things that we were not comfortable with as far as either lubricants, antifreeze, potential crankcase oil, and when it's been mixed with the water damage that was on the property, they've agreed to and have confirmation from Jeff, who's at the property, that they have a special team that's going around daily to inspect, and if there's any indication of any further spills occurring, they're putting the, oh boy, I want to call it cat litter, I know it's not cat litter. Speedy dry down, so that they're addressing that. We were obviously out there during the fire marshal's office, after the fire. They did the cleanup. We should be getting a manifest from, I think it's Eastern Environmental.
Correct.
Once that's been finally completed as far as where the disposal occurs, so that's been done. And I know one of the things I didn't put in here is just the compensation aspect. I do want to throw that out quickly. Initially, because the races were going on, we couldn't give them the entire 52.5 acres. So the first payment that we received in October was for $62,625. That was the month first payment. That was prorated. Once we turned over the remainder, which was 37 acres, there's an additional payment that was made. And as far as what's being currently paid per month, October, and then, of course, November, once we arrive, it's $219,187 per month that the CDA is receiving.
Bob, I don't know if you told me or if I heard it from somebody else, but there are more cars leaving the facility and no more entering at this point.
My understanding, and again, this is a representation from Jeff and from IAA, is that there are about 4,800 cars that are there. The process takes about 45 days, I'm told, to 60 days for them to relocate and remove the cars, in order to properly go through DMV, have them declared salvage, and then ultimately transported to their end spot. I'm told there's about 800 a week that will be leaving, which simple math is 6 weeks, but again, given some delays and some issues, they expect it to.
And no more coming is what I'm
No
getting
more
at.
coming is what I've been told.
Bob,
I'm just
can
gonna-
I ask you, can we determine when these cars are going to be removed,
They,
possibly?
again, we're hoping by end of the year, December. I don't want to make a better
No,
representation.
not
now.
all the, not all the cars, we're talking about the EVs.
EVs?
Yes.
I will reach out to their
Yes.
representative and see if we can get that done within a week. I don't want to make an affirmative representation because I just had some initial discussions with them. Again, they indicated that, they needed to reach out to their team on site, see how feasible it was. The initial response back is they believe it can be done. I did not get into specifics, Rob.
Is there a possibility we could re-entertain the contract and look, I mean, are we stuck with this contract until the property's sold?
The option?
Yes.
We can certainly talk about that in executive session, but
Yeah,
I think
let's
like
talk
anything
about
else,
that.
you can always look at and re-examine a contract.
We should.
Consider other alternatives.
Yeah, things change, and that contract
Sure.
was created when, in
2014.
2014.
Yep.
So, you know, we're
It was
talking,
actually signed on April 7th of 2014.
okay, so it's 8 years, so maybe we should look at it again, but we'll do that in executive session. That's not
That would be
something
something that obviously we have to discuss in executive
As
session.
a board, that's great.
So I did want to bring up a few things, which is why I put this on the agenda. I did go out this morning, and I met with the managers out at the site, looked around at everything, got a tour of everything, and yes, there are 30. I actually got out and counted the electric cars. There are 30 electric cars there.
Okay.
And I was told by the managers that they have not been bringing in new cars for a while, and they're not going to be bringing in new cars now. It's a matter of selling the cars.
Correct.
However, I am going to say, you know, in the big picture of things, it is disturbing to see out there. There are about, 4,800 cars. And for me, looking at the, as far as talking about the contract, which we'll do in executive session, but certainly, I think that we could have a better use of that property, looking at those runways and that amazing piece of property out there. I would like to, develop that property at some point, get this done in the near future. So I don't think storing cars on runways is the best use for the EPCAL property. A couple questions, though. Yes, I do want to, as I asked the other night, I've asked a couple times. I'm glad, Bob, that you're following up and that we will remove the EV cars, because one of the concerns, and I actually looked at the spot where the fire occurred, and I had seen pictures, and there was a lot of fire foam used for that, and with the issues we're having with water, as residents brought up the other night, fire foam is a real concern, and, it was upsetting to see, that I had seen pictures with a lot of fire foam
Yeah,
there.
Catherine?
One of the other issues that I thought was concerning was, I actually didn't like the way, like some of the cars were backed right up to the grass part, really close, when there was a lot of room left on the runway. It seems like there was enough room to pull the cars more onto the runway and not backed up right to the edge of where the grass occurs. That seems like something that wouldn't be that complicated. I'm not aware, and I can't seem to confirm this, whether the DEC has actually been out to visit.
Again, I'll state to you, I don't know if they have or have not. I'm
Anne
not
Marie, have they been out to the?
But I know they were out, when the drag racing was going on, but I don't know, I mean, when the,
Yes, they have.
when Scramble was being done, I know that there was some
right.
overlap there.
But my understanding
hold
is that
on,
it's
can I
been
just-
some emailing back and forth, and I'm just
Catherine, can you
looking,
just let
I'm just
me
looking
please-
to see that they actually came out and visited the
I,
property.
I'm trying to have a dialogue here, and it's not happening, and I just want to interject. Catherine, I just want to add, I was out there that night, the phone, and it was verified, the phone is environmentally safe, and I think you've been informed to that. In either case, you have been informed of that fact. Anne Marie, I know that you have worked with the DEC, and I believe that they were out there. Can you come forward to confirm that, please?
Well, I mean, I'm going to just respond before Anne Marie comes up, because
Okay.
a couple quick things.
Yeah, she could
As
be
far
right
as the use of the property, certainly we all agree that's probably a better use. And this is only a temporary agreement, and it envisions that if there's a sale or lease, they have no more rights. So let me first and foremost point that out.
Yeah, and I do want to
This-
look, I
this
don't
is
know if
only-
this-
This is only in a catastrophe that they kept their option alive.
Right.
But should the CAT deal go forward, or any other deal, or a lease that would encumber that property, IAA no longer has rights under that option agreement. I also want to make note that the $25,000 a year that we received for 8 years was helpful because it helped fund the CDA budget, which does not have a separate and distinct line for litigation. And this has been a very difficult position for me, where I'm asking attorneys to work on matters, telling them to continue working on matters, and then saying, oh, by the way, you're not getting paid. So that's been a real, because we've always run out of money. $25,000 a year has not been enough to pay counsel on the CAT and other EPCAL matters.
But
So,
I also, if I can say that, from a business practice, we're supposed to honor the deal. Catherine, if you didn't like the deal, like the usage, 4 years ago, you should have said, stop giving us $25,000 a year and stop taking the payments. But you can't take the payments year after year after year, and then when it comes time that they want to actually utilize the runway, say, no, now you can't have it. That's not proper business
Now, let me be clear on
ethics.
something, Ken. I was never informed that this deal was in place. I didn't hear about this deal until after the racing was started, and then I don't know how this wasn't discussed with the racing. To me, that was a real oversight. So since you bring that up, I was not aware, never informed, and not given information that there was this car storage in place. So just to go back to that.
We have
and-
asked where the attorney fees were coming from, and it was expressed that this was a method of income, and Bob was
No,
utilizing that.
I would, I certainly would have brought it up when we were talking about the racing, Ken, if I knew about it.
You did know
So
about it,
just-
but let's
just-
not go there. Let's just move forward.
Yeah, this isn't
is a
supposed to be an
discussion.
attack on, I'm not attacking anybody.
Okay,
I'm
Catherine,
just
this is
bringing up issues.
The public does not deserve you acting like this, Catherine. Let's have an open, cordial conversation. Our job is for the public, to work with the public, to work on problems. And why don't you come up here and join us? You know, you're refusing to join us. This is what the public selected us. They voted us in to work for them in the best interest. We want EPCAL. We want to make sure we have development there. That is our goal. In the meantime, we have this contract. And, Bob, are you done? so we
No,
can
I'm
have
gonna
Andy
respond,
come
no,
back?
Bob.
I have one more
Bob, let
comment.
me respond to that, please. So, me bringing up issues shouldn't be a problem. This is my job. I'm bringing up issues. I'm discussing them. I'm certainly not attacking anybody. I am simply doing my job. So let me finish a couple of things for you, Bob. I would ask that we could have the DEC come out. I don't know that maybe someone knows, but I've been asking for several weeks.
This was
I know
told.
that you have corresponded with Rob Marsh
I
and the
can't
DEC.
control them. Obviously, they're an independent agency. I can ask Mr. Marsh if he'll come out.
That would be great.
So, again, I'm not sure why that's critical here in light of the fact that there's been full disclosure and a constant discussion with them. So I'm not sure what the real problem is there, but I will ask him.
That would be
As
great.
far as the fire foam, I got to comment because two things. One, we know that the fire foam type 3 that was used is determined okay. Two, as noted the other day, and Mr. Mancini's here, that runway is above the groundwater divide. It's not going south, it's going north. And again, I want to point that out because that's a given fact. We know that, and for some reason, that continues to get lost in this mix, and it's a bit annoying because the facts tend to get glossed over by this whatever. I don't want to get argumentative, I don't want to get flippant, I don't want to get insubordinate to you guys, but I have to point that out. And certainly, I want to work with you. If there are real items and issues that you have as far as the amendment of the agreement, killing off this option, it might be at a price, we might have to pay IAA. I'll talk to you about that.
We'll do it in executive session because that is a
But I
contract.
mean, there's things that are brought up in the form of questions, but they're more statements, such as the fire foam being a problem. And
Yeah,
we
Bob.
have all evidence to indicate to the contrary, so
Yes,
that's,
You know,
it's just,
Bob, just to touch on that, you know, it did come up, and the community is talking about it and concerned about
But
it,
again, I
so-
brought it up Tuesday at the
Bob, but-
meeting, and it continues to
Right.
be thrown out as if it's not factual. And I want to make sure
Okay.
that factual discussion gets
And I think
stopped
it's
because it
good.
continues to go
Okay.
on.
That seems
So,
to be
I
how
think
people
it's-
want to go with this,
and I
and that's
think-
unfortunate.
Right.
You know,
and
it's
I-
election
And I've been
time,
very reserved, and I
unfortunately.
haven't gotten agitated and animated, but when it continues to come at you and continues to be attacked, and you continue to hear the same thing over and over again, after you tell people that's not true, it gets a bit
But
frustrating.
I don't think it hurts for the community to hear you assuring them about that. I think that's all good. That's why.
Mr. Mancini's here. He
that's
can
why we
also
meet-
assure them as the district
And I'm
district
not questioning
superintendent.
you on it. That's
Okay.
why we meet publicly.
All right. Thank
So
you.
just to confirm too, we're gonna have a discussion about removing the electric cars
Yep.
and taking another look at the contract. Thank you, Bob.
Absolutely.
All right, Bob, I'm sorry you started your day off like this. It does not belong here at a town board meeting.
I don't mind, I don't mind. I
You
just,
know-
as I say, it's a bit frustrating because I try to do the best I can.
I know you
And I
are.
try to address as many issues as I can, and when the things keep getting repeated and ad nauseum,
Mm-hmm.
and these comments keep getting stated ad nauseum, and that's not to critique anybody, and they're told otherwise, and they're told otherwise, and then it continues to come out. It just gets a little frustrating.
Okay,
And I-
thank
and
you,
I-
Bob.
I'm sorry.
It's
It's
okay.
maybe, again, the former ADA in me, when you're fighting in a court of law and you keep hearing the same thing.
Yeah, that's what it
You get
is.
a little annoyed.
You're being attacked.
In that case, there's a judge who'll tell you, shut up, sit down, you know?
Okay, thank you, have a good day. And the councilwoman has been told on numerous occasions what type, she was even given the type of phone that was used, but we're gonna move on. Anne Marie, can
And
you
need to-
relate to the DEC?
Do not disrespect me.
I'm not disrespecting, I'm just informing you that you were aware. Let's just keep this conversation cordial, Catherine. I ask you, the public is listening to us. This is not how we should conduct meetings. We're going back to
right.
3 years. We don't want to go back to those type of meetings with you. Go ahead.
So
good
DEC
morning.
has been out to the site, they were early, they were on the site when the cars were first coming in and the contract was starting, in part for two reasons. Number one, the cars, and we had the race events. And we were switching from, they did an inspection of the first promoter, and then in between his cleanup and the beginning of the next one. So they were there, they met with Jeff Seaman.
I stood
I-
on the runway with them,
Exactly.
Wait.
so, and
Right.
the
Yes,
supervisor was there.
right.
So I was there with the DEC and with Jeff
Correct.
Seaman, Rob Marsh.
That's what I was trying to confirm, thank you.
And as a result of the fire incident, Fire Marshal Zidek had been in contact with them, as was Jeff Seaman. In addition, Jeff Seaman has a open dialogue and communication with them, and I will inform the town board and the public that is listening that Jeff Seaman has gone out September 18th, September 24th, October 2nd, October 4th, October 16th. And the reason is actually to protect and address and report on all matters, all concerns. In
For people
his-
that don't know who Jeff Seaman is, could you just explain that?
Yes, he's a environmental specialist with quite an extensive curriculum vitae. Perhaps I should have brought that with me, but I didn't, but he has a very extensive curriculum vitae. He is fully versed in the EBCAL property, concerns of grasslands, every potential environmental issue related to that property, and quite frankly, any other property, you know.
And he's
that
retained by
he's-
the town
Yes.
Correct.
for
Correct. Yes.
environmental
Yes,
situations.
and I can inform the board that Kelly McClinchy had asked me, well, is there a schedule for him to go out? And I explained that, no. I requested that the supervisor permit me to contact her and communicate with her because it was better to have a random schedule. If we have a set schedule and IA knows we're coming out every Thursday, obviously, potentially, the site could look different than a random inspection. I will tell the town board before the October 16th inspection, I actually called the supervisor Friday night at 8 o'clock and asked permission.
8:30.
Sorry. And asked permission to arrange for him to go out. That's how random, I'm doing the process. I kind of check in with him, what's his schedule, whether he deems it appropriate or not, and if he says yes, then Friday night I called you and I said, he's available, he can do it within the next 2 or 3 days, would you authorize it? Yes. I can also report to you that IAA, throughout these inspections, Jeff and I have sat down with the town attorney, and the town attorney has in turn communicated with IAA regarding our upgraded recommendations. I can tell you, Jeff's report on October 16th actually complements the implementation of every recommendation that he had last time he was out, and then some. I can also tell you that the representatives of IAA and Jeff Seaman both report that Craig is out there a lot. That
Yes, he is.
Craig is inspecting, also random, but very frequent. Am I right, Craig?
Well, certainly Craig seems to be very knowledgeable on it, and you know, and I think it's really good, Anne Marie, for the public to hear these things, because
Absolutely.
we know that the public has concerns. This is exactly why I brought it up today. This is why I'm asking the questions.
Right.
And hopefully the public will feel better after hearing your answers.
Right, and we're going to, unless the town board tells me otherwise, continue with the random inspections. And Jeff Seaman is reporting to Rob Marsh at the DEC, and I can also tell you, your town attorney is communicating with Rob Marsh regularly and routinely. So,
Thank
Great.
you.
And so we could see the matter was addressed through the DEC.
Yes.
And the foam was, bottom line is, it was an environmentally safe foam. We've been watching it at a town level, at a DEC level. We have had inspections. There's a plan in place if there's any leakage to be done. And yes, did you want to add? I know that you've been
I do.
at the site. Yeah,
I think all of us have been up to the site.
yes.
To continue beating this dead horse, to me, and make it redundant is ridiculous. All this information has been presented publicly time and time again. Now, you want somebody out there that's angry about it and they want to still spew these things that are not true? That's shame on them. Now, my biggest concern right now is, and I've sat at several of these open meetings where people from the audience have made accusations that, oh, I know that there's battery fluid leaking up there right now. How do you know that? If you know that, you are trespassing on that property. And if you're trespassing on that property, you're going to get locked up. You have no business being there whatsoever. And that brings me back to my concerns about the fire with the electric vehicle. Yes, it was ruled not suspicious. Doesn't mean that it wasn't suspicious, and doesn't mean that somebody wasn't up there tinkering with those vehicles. We know for a fact that somebody tried to get into Island Water Park the other night, purporting to be a town employee to do an inspection at nighttime.
That's correct.
And my understanding is that person possibly is involved with the Manorville Fire Department.
They are.
That will not be tolerated. If you want to go out and run like a wild gang because you're not happy with how things are going, shame on you, and you're going to be held accountable. End of story.
There is a police
You have an
report.
environmental expert.
Everything is
who's
being done to take care of everything up there.
The site, the stains, the cleanup, the material that they're using or laying down for the cleanup. And IAA has gone the extra step during Jeff Seaman's last visit. They are providing the manifest for what they do is after they lay the material down, they clean it back up, they dispose it in containers, and the company, Eastern, then takes it and disposes it at a DEC-approved site. They are voluntarily providing us with those manifests. In addition, I can tell you, Jeff is logging, as a result of the fire, a small portion of the grasslands was damaged, and there was a little bit of fiberglass. Tetra Tech went in and did the cleanup. Jeff Seaman went in, evaluated the cleanup, reported absolutely appropriate. Everything they did to remediate, he approved. I can tell you that he's also logging photographs of the now distance between the electric vehicles. I think we're being diligent, and
We are, and honestly, people do more harm to the environment using pesticides on their lawn than what's being done up there, so let's put this to rest.
Well,
Yeah, we need to put this to rest, and unfortunately, again, Catherine, you've been told over and over and over again, you refuse to call us, to email us, or to get any information. This was put before the public, and again, the Island Water Park, personally, I think it's still suspicious, because I did hear a police scanner stating that they were looking for two individuals on Scott Avenue that
The night
night
of the
running.
fire.
The night of the fire. So, this is that time, people do, EPCAL, I think people want it to become a big park. And that's it. Let nature take its course. It was given to us for development. And again, this is obviously somebody else's campaign issue also, Island Water Park. And we went through the entire process. And we've got to stop. Has got to stop. Hopefully by November 3rd, after the election, we can get back to some normalcy. But it's my intention to make sure that we can have some cohesive meetings until the end. And I think you said you wanted to add to the, no?
No, I'm okay. Tim reiterated a lot of my concerns about that there's just, I have to, I have the same thoughts as Tim. Who's wandering up there? Who says they're taking pictures? I go up there, I go through a security check to go onto the premises and so forth. And so I have to question the integrity of the comments that were made.
Absolutely.
And that was all coordinated, the last town board meeting, it was all coordinated, and it's, again, I think it's political, it is political. In either case, we're going to take politics, and we're going to continue with this meeting.
Right,
and hopefully
and
that
I
this
am
doesn't
going to
entertain it.
speak right now on that. First of all, I'm
Well,
speaking.
if this doesn't have to do with our discussion items.
Yeah, I'm
gonna
gonna go
leave.
too. I think so. I'm tired
Can I
of
have a
feeding
first and a
popcorn to
second?
the
Can I have a
public to watch
first and a
this
second?
circus.
Can I have
I
a
am-
first?
Motion.
I agree.
I am
Okay.
speaking on the issue, no,
Can-
I've been personally
We're
attacked.
done,
I am
meeting
speaking
closed.
on the issues.
Meeting
So
closed.
if you have a problem, you need to make things personal and political, perhaps you're not the
We
right
are,
person for the job.
November 2nd can't come fast.
It can't come faster.
But Craig,